opposition lawmakers are putting the president's proposed defense budget on hold, saying it's unclear. Officials in Taiwan are celebrating a U.S. law that could strengthen ties between the two countries. Tokyo Electron now faces national security charges in the TSMC trade secret theft case. Plus, will a massive fire in Hong Kong create new challenges for Beijing?
People died, that it was because the government didn't take seriously people's complaints, right?
Good evening and welcome to TaiwanPlus News. I'm Eric Gao. Opposition lawmakers are blocking a proposed $40 billion special defense budget from being reviewed. The president says this budget is necessary to fend off the threat of Chinese invasion. But opposition leaders say much more needs to be discussed. Leslie Liao has more.
More tanks, more jets, more firepower. That's what President Lai Ching-te wants for Taiwan. He's proposed a record $40 billion special defense budget, saying it's necessary to keep Beijing at bay. China claims Taiwan as part of its territory and has not ruled out taking it by force. Lai announced the plan last week, and the cabinet passed it shortly after. But the bill still needs approval by the opposition-held legislature, which has blocked it from making it to the floor. Kuomintang caucus whip Fu Kunqi says the ruling Democratic Progressive Party is trying to rush the bill through review.
就在今天，要塞进立法院的程序委员会，贸然的要全国人民在完全不知道情况之下，要一个空白的授权。
Now the opposition is putting conditions on moving the bill forward. They want President Lai to report to the legislature on the state of the nation. They say he should clarify the threats China poses to Taiwan and what weapons would be bought with the special budget. And they want him to answer lawmakers' questions. The presidential office says Lai can report on the budget, but it says a Q&A session is unconstitutional.
总统愿意在合法合宪的前提下，到立法院就国政方针以及国防特别预算向国人报告，也争取国会的支持。至于国情报告以即问即答的方式进行，宪法法庭已经判决违宪。
Disagreements over such a report could go on for a while, something one analyst says could play to the KMT's advantage as the party figures out its stance on defense spending.
Now you've got Zheng Liwen, you've got the new KMT chair, who is very much against increasing defense spending. Meanwhile, you've got the presumptive frontrunner to be the standard bearer in the next presidential election for the KMT, Taichung Mayor Liu Xiaoyan, who has said that she strongly supports the military.
The opposition may not all be on the same page yet, but it's succeeded so far in keeping the bill from leaving committee. And with the ball now in the legislature's court, compromises may be made. And Lai's special budget could look very different once and if it's approved. Chris Ma and Leslie Liao for TaiwanPlus.
A new law requires the U.S. State Department to review its guidelines for relations with Taiwan at least every 5 years. Our reporter Cadence Caranta explains why this could have big consequences.
U.S. President Donald Trump has just signed into law a bill that could pave the way for deeper ties with Taiwan. It's called the Taiwan Assurance Implementation Act. It requires the U.S. State Department to review U.S. guidelines for how it engages with Taiwan at least every 5 years, and then report to Congress. In those reports, officials must explain how the guidelines deepen U.S.-Taiwan relations and identify ways to lift restrictions on engagement with Taiwan. The law isn't specific about what those restrictions are, but they could involve things like high-level visits to Taiwan by U.S. officials. This law could expand U.S. interactions with Taiwan. One of the bill's co-sponsors says it would strengthen U.S.-Taiwan relations and send a message to China that the U.S. stands against its efforts to dominate the region. Now, it's important to explain that the U.S. doesn't officially recognize Taiwan and instead has diplomatic relations with China. But it does engage with Taiwan unofficially, which is what this bill is referring to. Trump's signing of this bill comes amid some uncertainty about his support for Taiwan. He's recently held calls and even an in-person meeting with Chinese President Xi Jinping, and they have said they plan to meet again next year. All interactions that have left some worried about what that could mean for Taiwan. But today, Taiwanese officials are celebrating this bill as a win for U.S.-Taiwan relations, with the foreign minister saying this on Wednesday.
对于双方面交往准则可以彼此更这个完整的互动包括其中到联邦机关洽公，或者是到我们代表处来这个互动这个包括台美关系正常化的进一步的发展。 我们表示肯定跟感谢。
Taiwan's presidential office also thanked the U.S. for its support. But China, as expected, is not happy about the new law. Beijing's Taiwan Affairs Office says the bill interferes with China's internal affairs and violates its One China principle. It said it opposes any form of official exchanges between the U.S. and Taiwan. What we'll be looking out for next is what these reports to Congress will say and if they end up advocating for any kind of relaxing of restrictions on U.S. engagement with Taiwan. Klein Wang, Devin Tsai, and Cadence Quaranta for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's foreign minister says he looks forward to reestablishing official diplomatic relations with Honduras.
对于两位对台湾友好的总统候选人，我们也都保持有良好的互动。那我们也期待台湾跟洪都拉斯的关系能够在这个大选之后建立起基于平等互惠一个外交上面的一个关系。
Hondurans went to the polls earlier this week to choose their next president. Early results show the two candidates who have suggested bringing back official ties with Taiwan are currently in the lead. Salvador Nasralla has explicitly pledged to restore ties if elected, while Nasri Asfura has said he would move the country away from China. Honduras cut ties with Taiwan in favor of China in 2023, but if there's growing disappointment over how that switch has affected the Honduran economy. As of Wednesday morning, Nasralla is slightly ahead with around 72% of the vote counted. Burmese people living in Taiwan and pro-democracy allies are calling on Taiwan's government to reject the results of upcoming elections in Myanmar. They say any vote held by the military junta would not be democratic. Tiffany Wang has more.
Myanmar is set to have its first elections since the military junta took power in a coup in 2021. In December and January, people will vote on who sits in parliament. But here in Taipei, some pro-democracy activists are calling the elections a sham. Reject election. These activists are saying that the elections are only being used to give legitimacy to the junta, which ousted the democratically elected government. And they're calling on Taiwan's government to reject the results.
这是我们在缅甸里面的所有的县市都是我们有在缅甸的要问卷，这个问卷里面是99%的人是2021年的捐变是完全不支持的、不接受的，98%的人是这个选举是不公平的。 不应该的，98%的人说这个选举是没有解决到我们缅甸的现在的困难的事情。
Myanmar and Taiwan face similar pressures from the authoritarian expansions. Your support for Myanmar migrant workers, your public voice, and your democratic leadership matter greatly for us. We ask Taiwan to reject the military sham elections and its legality.
In a statement to TaiwanPlus, the Ministry of Foreign Affairs said it respected Myanmar's sovereignty and that internal issues should be resolved by the Myanmar people. It urged for a peaceful resolution of issues and said it supported international efforts to restore human rights and democracy. Meanwhile, the EU has decided not to send observers, and even the UN Secretary General warned the elections could cause more instability. Human Rights Watch noted the absence of major opposition parties on the ballot, and lawmakers from the US, Japan, New Zealand, and other countries have all called on their respective governments to reject the results. With just a few weeks to go before the first round of votes on December 28th, whether the elections can even be held in conflict-heavy areas remains to be seen. And with armed ethnic groups warning election workers of potential repercussions, it seems that Myanmar's divides will not be so easily resolved. Alex Chen and Tiffany Wang in Taipei for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan prosecutors are charging Tokyo Electron with national security and trade secrets violations in a case involving chip giant TSMC's most advanced technology. The Japanese-owned company is accused of failing to prevent staff from stealing TSMC's business secrets. It comes after one staff member was charged with conspiring to leak details about TSMC's 2-nanometer technology. Prosecutors say the company could face a fine of up to $3.8 million if convicted. Tokyo Electron told Bloomberg that the indictment targets its Taiwan unit, and it says it is working to verify the details. Now, this case marks Taiwan's first corporate indictment under the National Security Act for the theft of national core critical technology. Our reporter Yaqiu spoke with Tai Ziyan of SEER about the case's potential impact on the tech supply chain.
How critical is TSMC's 2-nanometer technology, and how could a possible trade secrets leak impact it?
那第一个就是说，未来的晶片需要兼顾能耗跟效能，所以在这个部分上来看的话呢，它其实需要在制造的过程里面，把这一些晶圆塞进更多的空间上，所以这种2奈米、1奈米的技术对它来讲就很重要。那从市场的需求上来看的话，通讯的晶片、高速运算的晶片，其实这个算力的需求一直都存在，从个人装置到大型的算力中心，它都有。所以我们就发现说，市场其实对这种先进运算的需求是很强劲的。所以在供不应求的情形之下，其实台积电2奈米的这个技术有相当的重要性。其实全世界各国都想要把这一些重要的前瞻的关键技术留在自己手上。那这个留在手上就变成是我们未来如果跟其他国家要谈判，甚至是资源交换的时候手上的一些资源跟筹码。那泄密案有可能造成我们在这方面的一个实力弱化。
How might holding a foreign company like Tokyo Electron liable affect the global semiconductor supply chain?
其实会对于整个半导体的供应链开始有一个警惕的效果，就是说我们现在其实要开始去盘查，不管是从其他公司跳槽过来的员工，或是我们现职的员工，在跟其他的这些公司员工接触的时候，是不是有不当的资讯交换的行为？所以这样的讯号也就代表说，公司其实未来在做，不管是供应商这边的资讯交换，甚至是客户间的资讯交换，其实都需要更慎重的去考虑到营业秘密或是特定技术这种流失或管制的问题，以免遭到这种法律上的一个追诉跟求偿的要求。
That was Tai Ziyan from SEER. U.S. envoys have met with Russian President Vladimir Putin in Moscow to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. Top negotiators are optimistic that peace is just around the corner. But for many Ukrainians suffering from deadly Russian strikes, peace may still be a distant concept. John Van Trieste reports.
A Russian drone hits a residential building in the eastern Ukrainian city of Kramatorsk Tuesday. Rescuers will later find a woman's body among the rubble. It's another life lost in Russia's nearly 4-year-long invasion of Ukraine. For people here, hope that peace will come soon. While around 800 kilometers away in Moscow, U.S. President Donald Trump's special envoy to Russia, Steve Witkoff, and Trump's son-in-law, Jared Kushner, have arrived for a meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin, part of months of efforts by the Trump administration to broker an end to the war. In the lead-up to the meeting, though, Putin's attention seemed to be fixed on war, warning Europe against getting involved in a conflict with Russia and reacting to Ukrainian attacks on Russian shipping.
Firstly, we would extend the range of our strikes on vessels and boats entering Ukrainian ports. Secondly, if attacks on Russian tankers continue, we would consider the possibility of retaliatory measures against vessels of those countries that help Ukraine carry out such pirate actions.
Before the Moscow meeting, Ukraine's President Volodymyr Zelensky, on a trip to Ireland, said he was somewhat optimistic, but is still skeptical about Putin's intentions.
Putin, now he is thinking how to find new reasons not to finish this war. And we count on pressure from the United States and the people of the world. I think so. They are a very strong country.
So pleased to see you.
But on Tuesday, the long-awaited meeting took place over what a Kremlin aide said was 5 hours. He doesn't give much detail about what the two sides discussed, But he says one of the toughest issues, Russia's demands for Ukrainian territory, was one area the two sides still disagree on. Still, when a reporter asked whether peace was closer or further away, this is what he had to say.
Not further, that's for sure. But there's still a lot of work to be done, both in Washington and in Moscow. That's about it. And contacts between Moscow and Washington will continue.
But for people in Ukrainian cities like Kramatorsk, site of Tuesday's drone strike, not further doesn't mean close. Russian attacks kept interrupting rescue efforts at the building hit earlier in the day. And as another round of talks about ending the war concludes, the war itself grinds on. Dolphin Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Coming up after the break, a year after former President Yoon Suk-yeol's martial law declaration, South Korea remembers the day that split the nation.
From a small studio in Taiwan to a global community for undaunted voices.
I'm just very grateful that they are able to spend time being part of Taiwan Talks and also being here with us today.
It's so refreshing that from a different country, from Taiwan, we are actually getting to see a show without noise, without yelling, and it's just complete facts and expert opinion.
Every single episode is about a Taiwan perspective.
Taiwanese speaking something from our heart.
Bringing forward all these different perspectives and voices to engage the world more seriously and continuously.
So the world will know that we are part of this globalized world.
British warship transited the international waters.
We're facing
without compromising our national security.
A lot of potential for these countries to emerge.
How important do you think that is?
Rule of law based order.
It's been 3 years of almost every waking hour devoted to the show. Today, we have something, and that something is precious.
I'm Tiffany Wang in Georgetown, Penang, and you're watching TaiwanPlus.
Start your weekend with a cup of coffee and a moment to reflect on what happened this week.
Hello and welcome.
We've got you covered, from defense and politics to high tech and the arts.
Not just to Taiwan, the whole world is watching.
You make the coffee,
we make the news.
Here's what happened on TaiwanPlus.
Welcome back. You're watching TaiwanPlus News. At least 156 people are now confirmed dead in Hong Kong's deadly apartment fire, with dozens still missing. Police say they have arrested 15 people on suspicion of manslaughter. The fire started at an affordable social housing project last week and burned through 7 out of 8 buildings. The housing complex was undergoing massive renovations when the fire broke out, and authorities suspect unsafe construction materials contributed to the fire spread. To find out how last week's massive fire in Hong Kong may further test the Chinese government, Leslie Liao spoke with Yaqiu Wang, a fellow at the University of Chicago's Forum for Free Inquiry and Expression.
How has China reacted to the Hong Kong fires so far?
The Chinese government has already, issued several propaganda articles saying anybody who's raising questions about transparency and corruption should be, potentially investigated for national security reasons. So the government is already kind of know that people are angry about it. People will call for accountability.
We're seeing reports that there were multiple safety failures leading up to this fire. What's the government's role in those safety failures falling through the cracks?
Residents were complaining about the lax safety enforcement surrounding the building. So clearly that people knew something was wrong, and they urged the government to, look into the company's behavior, the contractors. The fire happened, people died. that it was because the government didn't take seriously people's complaints, right? When you have a government that is not accountable to the people, right? And then, of course, it fosters corruption. When the government leaders are not elected by the people, they don't have to answer to the people's demands.
During a U.S. congressional hearing, you said that a fire in northwestern China in late 2022 caused some political challenges for Beijing. Are we seeing similar challenges unfold here?
I think it's similar in the sense that obviously that when there's a fire, some safety regulations were not enforced, or measures were not enforced. So in that regard, the Urumqi fire or the Hong Kong fire are similar. That speaks to the government's failure. And when there's no free expression, people can't freely criticize the government, can't freely express whatever they think the problem with the government. All those things, are the fundamentals of a democracy, of a free society, which is closely related to, how well managed, how well run, a city is, how accountable, how transparent the government is. It is a threat because the government knows that people are unhappy about the situation and people wanted to, speak up about the situation. So they are Beijing is preemptively sending the message to threaten the people that don't do that. You can be put in jail.
That was Yaqiu Wang, a fellow at the University of Chicago's Forum for Free Inquiry and Expression. South Korea is reflecting on a short-lived martial law declaration that split the nation. And 1 year on, the reverberations are still being felt. John Van Triest has this.
It's exactly 1 year since South Korean lawmaker Kim Sang-wook's life took a sudden turn. He's back in front of the National Assembly building where it all went down. On December 3, 2024, then-President Yoon Yeol declared martial law for the first time since the 1980s, polarizing the country between Yoon's supporters and those who felt he'd crossed a big line. As troops swarmed Seoul, Kim rushed to the parliament building, facing down armed soldiers and participating in the vote that undid the declaration a few hours later. Kim was a member of Yoon's People Power Party, but he felt Yoon had gone too far. He recalls his complex feelings after voting for Yoon's impeachment.
My first thought was, we stopped it. We finally stopped a broken, runaway locomotive. My second thought was, I was at that crucial juncture, a historic moment when the nation was on the verge of collapse. My third thought was, what do I do? What do I do now? My fourth thought was, I have nowhere to go.
He's since switched political sides, joining the Democratic Party of Korea. Kim wasn't the only one who made difficult choices last December 3rd. At the time, Ryu Hyuk was the Inspector General at the Justice Ministry. He headed straight to his office, where officials were already talking about the martial law declaration. He wrote a hasty letter of resignation, shouted, quote, "No matter your political views, martial law is not acceptable," and walked out. He thinks others would have joined him had the martial law order not been reversed so fast. A year on, he's still thinking about his next step in life.
Before the impeachment, I was really stressed and went through difficult times. But after that, even if there were various problems, it was nothing compared to the chaos before the impeachment trial. Currently, I am doing well and at ease, and I'm now considering what I should do going forward.
But thousands of ordinary South Koreans took to the streets too, adding to the pressure. Kim Da-in was one of them. She sped to the parliament building, arriving after martial law was lifted, but before the chaos had passed. She went viral for a video of her stopping a tank. It's become a defining moment in her life that has this university student confident she can achieve anything.
As a woman who stopped a tank, what I wanted to say was I want to keep stopping it.
A year on, South Korea has a new president, Lee Jae-myung. Today, he's addressed the nation, praising those who defended South Korea's constitution and democracy, and declaring December 3rd People's Sovereignty Day. But he says there's still work to do, starting with punishing those behind the coup. And he also says the country must stay vigilant.
The perpetrators attempted to destroy the entire constitutional order of South Korea and sought to rule the country with military violence above law and order. And the possibility of that becoming reality was extremely high. Such things can happen again at any time.
The legal and political fallout of last year's events continue, making December 3, 2024, a date that will likely be remembered as a significant point in South Korea's history. Patrick Chen and John Van Trieste for TaiwanPlus.
Taiwan's former digital minister Audrey is in Sweden to receive the 2025 Right Livelihood Award. The honor recognizes individuals or groups for achievements in social or environmental change and is known as Sweden's alternative to the Nobel Prize. Tang was selected for her work on, quote, advancing the social use of digital technology to empower citizens, renew democracy, and heal divides. She is the first Taiwanese recipient. While in Sweden, Tang spoke about how to harness the power of artificial intelligence for good.
I believe we can steer AI away from addictive intelligence that lures people in through doom scrolling, through synthetic intimacy, into assistive intelligence, where AI systems are steered by the community in the service of communities.
Other Right Livelihood recipients this year include the groups Justice for Myanmar and Sudan's Emergency Response Rooms. And thank you for watching TaiwanPlus News. You can visit the TaiwanPlus website or follow our social media for more stories from Taiwan and around the world. Finally, we head to Poland, where artisans have been handcrafting glass ornaments for generations. I'm Yaqiu. Take care. We'll see you later.